Bonnie. And if you're new to my channel, I want to welcome you, and I hope that you enjoy my channel. And I want to mention a couple of things before I get started. First, I noticed in my last video that you heard a lot of dogs barking in the background. Those are my neighbor's dogs, and anytime someone walks down the street or when the mailman passes especially, they start barking. And I'm kind of used to it, so I didn't even notice it while I was filming. But whenever I went back and listened to my video, I was like, oh, they were barking a lot. So I'm sorry about that. And actually, I can hear them right now. And another thing too, I had gotten that little scratch off for that giveaway. And I scratched it off. And I'm going to be able to get a free hank of yarn. So I'm all excited about this. And once everything is completed with that and I receive it, I'm going to show that to y'all. So today I'm going to show y'all a couple of shawls that I made. And today I had a hard time figuring out what I wanted to talk to today. And I kept trying to think, what's a good topic? What's a good topic? And nothing really was coming to me except for one thing. And it's been coming to me a lot, but I kind of was like, I don't know if I'm ready to take this step in my videos. But I think this is a sign that it's time for me to take this step. So I'm going to do like I do with knitting and crocheting. I'm just going to dive right into it. And I hope that I can teach y'all something. I'm going to do my very first knitting tutorial. I'm going to be showing you how to do a slip knot. Then I'm going to show you how to cast on your knitting needles. And I'm going to show you how to do the knit stitch. So the first shawl I want to show you, I did this with the Red Heart Metallics yarn. I don't remember the exact color of the yarn, but it was the brown shade. And they only have one brown shade, so if you're interested in this yarn, it's not hard to figure out which yarn it is. And this shawl has the bobble stitch. And this is the first time I did the bobble stitch, and the only time so far. Which, that's a really interesting stitch, because there's a lot of steps to doing this stitch. And as you can see, I put tassels on the shawl. Let me show the bottom better for y'all. And the other shawl I want to show you is done in the chevron stitch. And this shawl, I use Red Heart Super Saver yarn. And I don't remember the exact shades of the colors that I used, but I used the darkest brown shade that Red Heart makes. And then I used one of the pink shades. And this is done in the chevron stitch. Let me show that part better. And you'll see I put tassels on this one. I love tassels. And actually, I am thinking about doing, I mentioned this previously, a loom knitting video. I'm probably going to work on that either later this week or next week. So expect that if you're into loom knitting. But these are the shawls that I wanted to show you today. And I hope y'all enjoyed seeing them. I'm going to put a link down below for the patterns in case you're interested in making one of these shawls. and cat news. Well, Sophie started crying about 6:30 this morning because she wanted the front door open so she could do her looking outdoor thing. She's addicted. And other than that, she's been pretty lazy today. She's been sleeping a lot. And same with Allie. Allie's in a little better mood today, but she's still kind of hissing and growling. And Allie is enjoying the box that I got yesterday from Trisha, the knitting lady. She's claimed that box. She's been laying and sleeping on top of it most of the day. So that's her box now. But that's about all that's going on with the cats today. Now I'm going to show you how to make a slip knot. You'll notice the end piece of yarn is in my left hand. And the side that's connected to the skein of yarn is in my right hand. So you'll take your right hand and you pull it over like this, where you make a loop. Then you pull this yarn in your left hand through the loop, like that, and you pull. And you can adjust it while it's like this. See, that makes it tighter, or you can pull it looser. And let me show you this a couple of more times to make sure you have it. Okay. You have the end piece in your left hand and the part that connects to the yarn in the right. And you just flip it over like this, where if you notice the part that's connected to the skein of yarn is on top and the end piece of yarn is underneath here. And then you just take that end piece and pull it through the loop, and then you tighten it. And I'm going to show this one more time to make sure you have it. So the end piece is in your left hand. The yarn that connects to the skein is in your right. You take what's in your right hand, pull it over the yarn that's in your left, and then you take what's in your left and pull it through the loop, and then you tighten it. And this is how you make a slip knot. Very easy. Then you want to put that slip knot on your needle. So you just slide it in and then you tighten it. And we're fixing to start casting on. And this is the long tail cast on method that I'm going to be showing you. There are different methods for casting on. And typically I tend to do my cast on a little differently. It's just I prefer that method. But most tutorials will show you the long tail. And that's the most common that people use. Now when it comes to patterns, you will sometimes see a pattern call for a different cast on method. And you need to do whichever cast on method the tutorial tells you to do, because it does make a difference. But usually if it doesn't call for one, you're going to have your end piece at the bottom. And make sure you're careful with this, because you may end up where you start casting on the loose piece here. But this is how I tend to hold it, where I have my thumb holding up the top piece of yarn and put the other yarn between my two fingers here. And you take your needle and you wrap it under like this. You see how the needle is? Then you go around like this, and then you let your thumb go. And then you kind of tug on it to get it tighter on your needle. And that's how you cast on a stitch. We're going to be casting on 10 stitches, so you're going to get to see this 10 times. So like I said, you go in like this. And then you see the piece of yarn here. You go around like that. And then you let your thumb go. It's like you go in, around, and let your thumb go. Okay, so we have 5 stitches on the needle right now. You see, and again, top yarn goes over your thumb, and make sure that's the yarn that's connected to the skein of yarn, and the bottom, the one in between your 2 fingers here, that's the end piece of yarn. And you take it and you go through like this. Then you go under the other piece of yarn, bring it back, let go of the thumb. Oops. Okay, we're doing it again. You go under. I'm sorry. You go under like this. Then you go under. Bring it back around. Let your thumb go. Under. Go around and under. Bring it back. Let go of your thumb. Okay, we need 2 more. Go under, then under the other one, and let go of the thumb. Okay, so we now have 10 stitches on the needle. And if you see what, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Then you're going to turn it, and you want to make sure that if you see right here, you want that all on the right side of the needle, and you want them all aligned. So you see how I have it? And you always want to make sure that that's right there. And be very careful, because you'll notice that I tend to keep my finger on top the top yarn, because you don't want this slipping off. So this, what I'm teaching you now, is the knit stitch. And you take that first stitch here and you stick it. See how it's going through right here? And you're going to put it like an X. Your right hand needle goes under the left hand needle. And this is the back view of it. So, show you again. You put your needle on, going through that your first stitch. And you notice it's in between the 2 pieces of yarn. Okay, and it's like you're making an X. See? It goes under, like an X. Your right-handed needle is the bottom. Your left-handed needle goes on top. Okay. Then, make sure you have the yarn connected to the skein of yarn. And you're going to take it and wrap it around the right-hand needle. Like that. Okay. And one thing I want to point out, when you're doing knit stitches, the yarn that connects to the skein should always be in the back. And this is going to play a big part when you learn how to purl, why it's important that the yarn is in the right position. Because you do not want it in the front like this. Whenever you start doing the stitch, it always has to be in the back. Okay. So that's one thing I want to point out, because when you go in between knit and purl stitches, you got to make sure you have the yarn in the right positioning, because with a purl stitch it goes in the front, knit is in the back. But I'm going to get into that more when I show you how to do purl stitch in another video. So let me show this again. You stick it under like an X. You take the yarn connected to the skein, wrap it around the right hand hook. The right hand needle. Okay. It's wrapped around. And then you take your right hand needle and you go in between. You see how it's wrapped? You go over that piece, but under the stitch on the needle, and your needle will be like this. And then you just push that stitch off the needle. Which, this is something you got to be careful about. You see how the yarn is like that? It makes it harder to knit the first row like this. So you really want to make sure that you, watch, let me show you. You really want to make sure that you keep your needles close together at the tip to prevent that from happening. So, oops. Okay, so again, we make like an X, put the yarn over, pull it through, push the yarn off. So we're making the X. You go between like this, wrap that yarn over the right needle, pull it through, and push it off. So like an X, wrap it around, push your needle through, and push off the stitch. See, I'm starting to do it again. But I'm trying to show how to do the stitches, so it's a little harder for me to keep this tension, but I'll make up for it at the end, so it won't be an issue. So X, wrap around the right needle, and you see you pull it through, and like I said, you want it to go in between like that and push it off the hook. Okay, so X, wrap it around the right needle, go through the loop, or the stitch I mean, and push the stitch off. Make the X, wrap it around the right needle, go through the stitch, knock it off. Make the X, wrap it around the right needle, go through the stitch, and pull it off the needle. See, make an X, wrap it around, go through the stitch, knock it off. Okay, now I'm going to give it a tug to okay. And you see how your stitches are now on the left side of the needle? Like this. The way you turn a knitting is very easy. And I find turning is so much easier in knitting than what it is in crochet. But all you do is just turn your needle around. And you see, and now your stitches are on the right side. And that's how you turn in knitting. And we're going to do the same thing again. Okay, now we're going to start the next row. Like I said, and you just do the same thing as before. Make the X, wrap around the right needle, pull through the stitch, and knock it off. Let me tighten that. And one thing I find, your first row or two, especially the first row, is your hardest row. See, you just keep doing like we did before. And another thing with knitting, the counting isn't as big of a thing like it is in crochet, because you're just going through the same stitches on the needle. Okay, so we finished this row, and this is the second row we just completed. So I'm going to put my stitch counter on 2. That way I know I finished the second row. I forgot to do that with the first row. And now we turn it, and you see the stitches are on the right side. And I'm going to use a stitch marker to mark the front side of my work, because the odd number rows is the front side, the even number rows is the back side. So you'll see I'm putting a stitch marker. You just kind of put it anywhere you can fit it on the front side. So now you'll know that this is the front side, so you won't get the sides confused. And since we're doing all knits, another thing I want to point out, it really looks the same on both sides. And when you're knitting on the front and the back side, that is called garter stitch. And you will see some patterns that just refer to, or maybe do garter stitch for 1 inch. And this is what they mean by it. You're just knitting front and back. And some patterns will just say knit for the directions. So let's continue. Oops. Okay. And we've just completed the third row. And now we're going to turn it. And as you see, the stitches are on the right side. And you'll notice this side, you're not seeing the majority of the stitch marker. So we're on the wrong side. Okay. And then X. Wrap around the right needle. Go through the stitch. And knock it off. X. Through the stitch. And knock it off. X. Wrap around. Go through the stitch. Knock it off. Now, by now you should have the hang of what we're doing. And I'm going to show you something that you want to try to avoid, but as a beginner, it's going to happen. This is what we refer to as a slip stitch. When that yarn comes off that needle. And you see, at this point, I can still salvage it. Where I was able to grab it, and now I'm going to just put it back on the needle. But I'm going to show you what happens whenever you're not able to grab it. See, knocked it off. I pulled it through. And you see this stitch just came undone. And there is a way to fix it, which I'm going to get into that on a later video. But that is what you refer to as a slip stitch. And it can go even further down. See, now it's pulled out of 2. Now it's out of all of them. That is slip stitches. And as a beginner, it's going to happen. The more experience you get, you'll learn how to prevent them. But even experienced knitters still get them sometimes. So this is all I'm going to show you today. Next week, I plan to show you how to do the purl stitch. So please stay tuned for that. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel, like my video, and please share my video on your social media platforms. Help my channel grow. And I want to thank everybody that has helped my channel grow too. I hope everybody is having a fabulous yarny day, and bye!